So I heard you wanted to get shredded. Well, my friends, you came to the right place. Alright, so what is up, folks? A lot of people have been asking me how I've been able to get shredded and cut up and actually prep during lockdown. So I wanted to give you guys kind of a comprehensive guide on how to generally shred and cut. Overall, my advice is going to be for general cutting purposes, but you can kind of tailor this to the situation that you're in. So again, my name is Christopher Barnett. I am an NASM certified personal trainer. I am a competitive natural bodybuilder. I've been involved in fitness, physical fitness in some form or another since the age of 12. And I've been pretty much weight training since the start of high school, and I am in college now. And also, so this video is not too boring for you guys. I will be putting up some training footage as I do this kind of voiceover slash, talking portion bit of the video. So it's gonna be a leg workout, more of a hamstring and calf dominated leg workout. I will put the full details, reps, the entire breakdown down below in the description box. So if you guys wanna give it a go, give it a shot, it will be down there. And if you wanna see more workouts, get more workouts, more workout advice, fitness tips, and see more vlogs from me, make sure to smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on post notifications. So without further ado, guys, let's get right into this cutting video. All right, so for anyone dieting down, wanting to lose weight, get shredded, get that six-pack abs, the #1 golden rule to lose weight, lose fat, is to maintain a caloric deficit. Everybody has a certain number of maintenance calories, which can vary from day to day, from person to person, and be affected by a variety of variables. But every single person has this sort of maintenance estimation of calories, whereby if you were to eat that number of calories, you would maintain your current body weight. And if you were to eat below this, you would obviously lose weight. And if you were to eat above this in a surplus, you would gain weight. And there's a lot of debate about how to actually estimate maintenance calories. There's a couple of ways that I've experimented with in times past. What am I, an author? But anyways, I actually would go with kind of these online calculator options, and this is certainly a valid approach. Well, it's an okay approach. I'm not gonna say it's valid because all these calculators are really just estimates, and there's so many different variables that affect one's maintenance calories. What I used to do is I would do like 3, 4, 5 online calculator maintenance calorie estimators, and I would kind of take an average of those. That's an easy starting point for you, but a more accurate way to do it, and it's actually what I recommend doing now after I've had more experience, is eat as you normally would without any major fluctuations or change in weight for 1 to 2 weeks, all while tracking everything you eat, calorically speaking. MyFitnessPal is a great option. That's what I use personally. After that, I want you to take a daily average of your caloric intake and use that as kind of a guide, an estimation of your maintenance calories. And then after that, obviously, you're going to want to eat less than that threshold in order to lose weight. So for overweight and obese individuals, I would recommend a kind of higher deficit. This can be anywhere from maybe 500 calories to 700 calories, maybe even higher than that, depending on the individual, how obese they are, or overweight, etc. Whereas if you are more of a leaner individual, I would recommend maybe a more conservative approach, maybe 100 or 300 calories, because if you enter a large enough deficit, you are going to lose muscle, and that's not necessarily the goal. For me personally, at the start of my most recent shred, I would say I was a little bit more overweight than I had ever been before in my life. I was storing more fat than I ever had before, so I went with roughly a deficit of maybe 500 calories, give or take. And so as you progress further, your body will undergo something called metabolic adaptation. And so what happens is that maintenance level of calories, as you lose weight, as you diet down, your metabolism slows down. If you think about it, you need less energy for a smaller body. Whereas if you are a larger body, you're gonna need more energy to maintain that weight and to maintain that body, if that makes sense. So as you diet down, as you lose weight, your maintenance calories will also go down. And this is where fat loss and weight loss plateaus arise, which I'll get into later. But once you reach that, just know that your maintenance calories are not gonna be constant throughout this cut. They will go down, at which point you may have to increase that deficit. It's going to depend on a number of variables. All right, so number 2 for my cutting principles and tips is to maintain a high protein diet. This is arguably the most important macronutrient in terms of cutting and or shredding or even prepping. And in addition to that, it's vital in terms of maintaining muscle, obviously building muscle in a gaining phase. And it's just important to know, this is not supposed to be a scientific lecture, but dietary protein is broken down into something called amino acids, which are just kind of its constituents. When that circulates throughout the bloodstream, it becomes critical for something called muscle protein synthesis, which is the process of kind of generating new muscle tissue. As a general rule, I like to recommend at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight for a cutting phase, at least to start. And once you go longer and deeper into your cut/shred, I definitely recommend increasing that up a little bit, maybe 1.25 grams per pound of body weight or upwards of 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. I did about 1.25, 1.3 or so grams per pound of my body weight at the time. And remember that protein is also necessary for muscular recovery. So when you are in a deficit, your recovery process may be slower because you're not having as many calories as you normally would in a maintenance or a gaining phase. So recovery is absolutely vital, muscular recovery, and you're going to need optimal protein levels in order to have your body keep up with the amount of training that you're doing. So hit your protein intake, hit your caloric intake. Those are the top 2 most important dieting considerations when entering a cut or even a shred or even a bulk or even a maintenance phase, etc. All right, number 3 is understand that carbs and fats are not your enemy. Remember, it's all about energy balance, calories in versus calories out. It's not the bread or the peanut butter or the chocolate that's making you gain weight, it's how much of it that you're eating, calorically speaking. Understand that carbs and fats are your body's main sources of energy for exercise and general function. Carbs are typically used for short term, this being working muscles during a workout, brain function. It's vital for your muscular system in terms of energy output there, and it's also vital for your central nervous system. In addition, carbs also have a protein sparing effect, which essentially means that by consuming carbohydrates, this prevents protein from being used as energy, which would be beneficial in the sense that that protein could otherwise go towards muscle protein synthesis. In fact, a valid argument against diets like the keto diet, for example, which is essentially virtually no carbs and more protein and fat, is that although keto diets do have certain benefits in terms of weight loss and rapid weight loss at that, like there is a potent fat burning effect, but this lack of that vital protein sparing effect by the carbohydrates requires your body to dip more into your muscle, more into that protein for energy usage. So this in turn would dampen protein synthesis and cause you to not retain as much muscle in your cutting phase. So I'm not advocating against keto diets whatsoever. I think they might be necessary for certain individuals and depending on the time frame, if it's a shorter time frame perhaps, but it is not entirely necessary for a cutting process, especially if you are doing a long-term cut. Of course, fats are used for long-term energy usage and they play vital roles in hormonal regulation. If you outright cut them, these can negatively impact you in a variety of ways, from lowering your testosterone to increasing your recovery time needed, rapid muscle loss, poor motor and brain function, among a host of other physiological, physical, mental effects. So for a majority of seemingly healthy individuals, you do not necessarily need to outright cut out a food group or a macronutrient. The human body and psychology, we are evolutionarily designed to be adaptable and to eat a variety of food groups. And just because we're trying to gain weight or lose weight, that doesn't necessarily change anything. The only exception I would say is if you're lactose intolerant or you have some kind of condition where you're medically recommended to avoid that certain food group, that's kind of a separate thing. But again, this is for generally healthy and normal functioning digestive systems. So yeah, the only thing I would say is if you are trying to increase that deficit, pull a little bit more from carbs and fats. That's my opinion, because I do like to have that higher protein intake for the cut. All right, so number 4 is that your gym training should remain the same. Training under a normal hypertrophy rep scheme, maybe 6 to 15 reps, training with high intensity, keeping a mind-muscle connection while you are exercising, time under tension. You see what I did there? Boom! Not only does weight training burn calories, but these also function as preservation workouts. Remember, one of the golden rules of this video is that what builds the muscle keeps the muscle. Assuming you are training properly for hypertrophy, 6 to 15 reps, maybe high intensity again, mind muscle connection, time under tension, and things like that, then that's also how you should train during your cutting phase. It is incorrect to think that you will get shredded by doing light weights and high reps. Number one, light weights and high reps. That training philosophy is for building up muscular endurance. Building up muscular endurance does not get you shredded. It builds up muscular endurance. That is a muscle's ability to contract over a long, sustained period of time under lighter loads. You also simply don't stimulate enough type 2 muscle fibers in order to ensure that those grow or that those are actually worked during a set. And in my opinion, if you go this route, you could risk muscular atrophy because you're not actually working those type 2 fibers. Instead, you are working those type 1 fibers under a non-hypertrophy based rep scheme. You are working on muscular endurance, not building up the muscle. And in terms of super heavy weight, low volume, longer rest times, while that does recruit those type 2 fibers and it does burn, a decent amount of calories, I would be careful about that because you can run into recovery issues because again, you will be in a caloric deficit and you won't be having as many calories as you normally would as maybe as a power lifter, or if you're bulking, or if you're in a lean bulk phase or gaining phase in general. So recovery is something to take into consideration as well. And remember that training with longer rest periods, high weight and low reps, that also focuses on muscular strength, not building up the muscle, not hypertrophy. It does not stimulate the most protein synthesis in the body. Remember that hypertrophy, the focus of hypertrophy, the purpose of hypertrophy-based rep schemes is for muscular sculpting, for building muscle, maintaining muscle, preserving muscle. Those are the benefits of hypertrophy-based rep training. And that is what I personally recommend if you are in a cutting phase. Remember, what builds the muscle keeps the muscle. All right, so next up, the dreaded cardio. I know you guys hate it. I know you don't want to do it, but I'm sorry, you got to do hours of cardio. It's just, no, I'm just kidding. All right, so here's the deal.
Now watch and learn. Here's the deal.
On a technicality, in order to lose weight, to lose fat, you don't need to do cardio. Remember, it's about energy expenditure, calories in versus calories out. As long as you are burning more calories than you are consuming, then you will lose weight and you will lose fat. However, I personally don't really recommend just not doing cardio during a cutting phase because that means that your entire deficit will be produced by eliminating food, and you will just be denying yourself more and more food in order to compensate for not doing cardio. Plus, cardio, list cardio, HIIT cardio, they also do have certain potent fat burning effects. HIIT cardio is great for burning fat, usually involving short bouts of super high intensity cardio. That's what HIIT is. However, I personally do not recommend it frequently. Maybe 2 days per week max if you were to do that. I personally don't really do it at all. But if you were to do it, 2 days max, in my opinion, because you want to focus on the actual weight training itself. This is what stimulates those muscle fibers, what fatigues them, and what will cause them to be preserved more. And if you just did intense weight workouts followed by high intensity interval training every single day or every other day, you are going to run into recovery issues because again, you won't have enough calories to keep up with the rate of muscular fatigue and bodily fatigue. And of course, there's also list cardio, which is actually my preferred method of cardio. It stands for low intensity, steady state cardio. This is things like walking, things like incline walk, cross trainer, Stairmaster, cycle machine, things like that. That is my preferred method. The reason I like it is because not only do I feel that it promotes blood flow throughout your body and effect aiding in that recovery process, but it's low impact. So it helps you recover and it's easily recoverable from, if that makes sense. Or is it the same point I'm making twice? I don't know, let's keep going. So my overall recommendation is to blend that deficit with both restricting a little bit of calories and increasing a little bit of cardio. That is my opinion. And that's what I feel that is best and optimal. All right, number 6 on my cutting tips. Ooh, where am I going with this? Anyways, eat a lot of high volume, higher fiber foods, things like greens, veggies, vegetables. These are things that are going to slow down the digestion process. Obviously, you'll get your micronutrients from greens, but it'll slow down the digestion process and keep you from feeling hungry all the time. Because again, fiber is something that slows the digestive process down in addition to promoting regularity. Did you poop today? Make sure you poop today. Also, on the bright side is you can eat things like broccoli and spinach all day, every day, and you're probably not gonna gain weight from it because they're so low calories and they're so dense and they will keep you feeling full. So I don't necessarily recommend just eating pure vegetables. That sounds like a terrible idea, and I will it just sounds like torture. Why would anyone do that to themselves? With that said, when you are eating your protein meals throughout the day, throw in some broccoli, throw in some spinach, throw in some asparagus. It's not gonna kill you to eat it, and you know, you're not gonna die. You can flavor it up a little bit, add a little bit of sodium to it, and it will help you keep yourself fuller. Oh shoot, everything's great. So number 7 is drink lots of water, guys. There's gonna be countless studies, countless research on this. Water does aid in the fat loss process. It also have a negative impact and a host of bodily impacts. Not good for your brain, not good for your kidneys. Just drink a lot of water, guys. Just drink a lot of water. If you want to add some Crystal Light, do it. Do it. Also, kind of gives you a false sense of feeling fuller because you have more stuff in your stomach, so that's also a benefit. You will pee more, unfortunately, that's the downside. Replace those lost fluids, guys. Replace your lost fluids with water. Do it. Just do it. I said so, do it. All right, number 8, I mean, this is just common sense, but sleep. Get enough sleep. Minimum, I would say 7 hours. That's bare minimum, but I would say anywhere from 7 to 9 hours is ideal. Without it, your metabolism slows, your testosterone lowers, you have slower recovery, less energy throughout the day. I mean, it's just kind of common sense, but sometimes we need to remind ourselves to get proper sleep and prioritize sleep on a daily basis. So number 9, what is this? What was this, 7 or 8? 9, birdie. Decrease stress as much as possible. So you could do a number of things. Take warm baths in the evening, drink tea if that helps. Get those incense or like those little candles, put it in your bathtub or whatever, and just relax and do a bubble bath, whatever you want to do. Get those little balls and throw them in the tub. See them sparkle and make bubbles. Just do it. Do what you got to do to de-stress throughout the day. Yoga, whatever, you name it. And the reason you want to decrease stress is because this increases the cortisol hormone, which actually causes you to retain water and actually gain more fat, which is obviously not ideal for cutting purposes. Sorry guys, might be at a bit of a different angle. I have my glasses on now. I had to take a break from recording because my battery did overheat. Next thing I do want to talk about is going to be supplemental intake. Supplements are rarely ever 100% necessary. You do not need to take supplements in order to get six-pack abs, in order to build muscle, in order to, you know, recomp your body. These are things that obviously supplement nutritional benefits that you would otherwise get from eating things like vegetables, things like chicken and stuff like that. So remember that diet, nutrition, and actual foods that you consume is far more important, especially with that protein intake and that caloric intake, far more important than any one supplement. However, of course you guys are gonna wanna know what supplements I do recommend. So my top ones would be, for me personally, creatine. What creatine does is it recycles ATP molecules in your body, which is your body's kind of energy currency, if you will. And basically what this does is it helps get that extra rep or two, increase force production in your workouts, be a little bit stronger, get a little bit of extra reps than you normally otherwise would. Do not worry about the whole water retention thing. Creatine helps you retain water in your muscles, so actually it makes you look a little bit fuller rather than being super flat, number one. And in addition to that, it has those performance benefits that I previously mentioned. The next thing I would recommend for cutting would be glutamine, BCAAs, and or EAAs. These are amino acids. Obviously, these are the constituents of protein, so naturally this will aid in muscle protein synthesis, it will aid in recovery, and overall they are anti-catabolic, so I would definitely recommend those. Lastly, of course, the classic protein powder. I personally like to go with a whey isolate protein powder because whey is fast digesting protein, and in addition to that, isolate protein powders usually have low carbs, low fats, so you don't have to worry about those extra sugars, about those extra fats, and all those extra calories. The one that I personally take right now would be Redcon One's isotope whey protein. And then lastly, I do want to address the kind of fat burners, whether or not they work, whether or not they don't work. Here's my opinion and my take on it. Personally, from my experience, thermogenic fat burners have had their uses and have had their benefits. When I personally took them, it kind of acted like a pre-workout, helped me stay more energized, more focused, and I definitely felt like I was burning more calories throughout my workouts because I was working harder. And I just noticed this kind of, I don't know if it's a side effect or if it's just like an effect of it, I guess, but my body temperature just felt like I was hotter, not hotter, but warmer, and I was definitely sweating more than I normally would. By the way, if you want a 20% off discount code on your next Redcon One purchase, use code T20CBARNET. It will be down below in the description box, the link, the code, and all the deets. All right, another tip, essential for what I want to cover, and this is going to be very dependent upon the individual. This is going to be dealing with the scale. Depending on what type of individual you are either going to want to ditch the scale entirely, or you want to consistently weigh yourself, in my opinion, every day. I mean, you can do once a week, but personally, I don't find once a week weight measurements to be that reliable because weight fluctuations occur almost daily. One day you could be 164 pounds, another day you could be 165, 166 pounds, and it might just be water weight, and it might not indicate that you gained fat. So if you were to do weigh-ins, I would personally recommend taking weight checks every single morning. What I personally do is right out of bed, after I use the restroom, fasted, no water, no food, and I basically take all my clothes off except for maybe some underwear that's virtually negligible. And I weigh myself under the same conditions every single day, and I like to take weekly averages. And I take that average and I compare those averages week to week to see what kind of progress I'm making. And if you are that type of individual where you like to deal with the math, be consistent, and you're very detailed and organized, then I would definitely recommend that. However, if you are the other type of person where if you see one day you weigh yourself and you said, oh my God, I gained a pound, and then you start to dread it and then you start to get discouraged, then ditch the scale. Don't let any outside negative influence affect you. All right, so the next tip / advice I want to give, and this is going to be arguably some of the most important information here aside from, caloric deficit and high protein. But this is in terms of what happens when, what do you do when you reach a fat loss plateau. Here is a list of things to consider and or try out when you reach a fat loss plateau. So number one, super simple. Obviously you want to increase the deficit. So what happens when you enter a caloric deficit over a consistent period of time is your body undergoes something called metabolic adaptation. So by lowering your calories consistently over time, your body's metabolism adjusts and adapts to that caloric intake level. And so as you lose weight, your daily level of maintenance calories also drops as well. So in order to continue to lose weight, you would subsequently have to lower these calories once again. You could also, instead of just lowering the calories, you could also increase the amount of training and or exercise or cardio that you are doing. That will also increase the deficit. So you could eat less, train more, or do a combination of both. The next thing that I would have you guys consider is if you have been dieting for a while and you have now reached a true fat loss plateau, and if you're stuck on the same weight for maybe 1 to maybe 3 weeks or so, what you can do is you could either introduce weekly cheat meals, introduce 1 to 2 carb refeed days, or you could include a 1 to 2 week diet break, all of which where you want to kind of aim for more of a maintenance level of calories. So what happens when people are in a deficit for the long term is they ultimately end up running into hormonal imbalances in things like testosterone, estrogen, and leptin. The third is perhaps one of the most important hormones because leptin is a potent fat burning hormone. And what happens when you introduce things like 1 to 2 day carb refeeds or 1 to 2 week diet breaks is this kind of helps reset those leptin levels, thereby increasing your fat burning effect after those diet breaks or carb refeeds or weekly cheat meals. And then last one, I would actually consider switching up some of the foods that you're intaking, your protein source, your fat source, your carb source. For me personally, when I was cutting and shredding for my show, I reached a fat loss plateau for maybe 2 weeks or so. I was just not budging. I was doing more cardio, doing, eating less calories, and my weight would not budge. And I decided, okay, here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch up my protein sources. And what I did is instead of having tuna, I had tilapia. Instead of having turkey, I had lean ground beef. So I switched up my protein sources. And after that, I noticed that the next maybe 4 to 5 to 6 week cycle of that particular diet, I lost a considerable amount of weight and fat. So I broke that fat loss plateau by switching up my food. So that's something you want to consider if you've exhausted all your other options. The last thing I want to emphasize to you guys is do not, under any circumstances, develop an unhealthy relationship with food. What happens is if you do a long-term sustained diet, you ultimately end up risking the development of actual eating disorders, binge eating disorders, for example. In fact, a lot of people after their contest preps, after depriving themselves of decent or good food or, a normal amount of calories for several months, they end up developing binge eating disorders after their shows because, oh, the show's over, I can eat whatever I want now. And what happens is they ultimately end up eating more than their body needs, number one, because their psychology thinks, oh my God, I have all this freedom now. My stomach's full. But my brain says, no, I need to eat more. I want to eat more. And it's ultimately just not a good idea. What's really more sustainable for the long term, obviously taking everything I mentioned into consideration, but finding foods that work for you. This could be just researching anabolic, high protein, lower calorie options. Check out Remington James or Coach Greg Doucette. Those guys are awesome. Those recipes work for me a little bit. If you are good with just having the conventional rice and steak or rice and chicken or whatever conventional bodybuilding meal you want to have, if you're okay with that and you can handle it, then by all means, go for it. But you want to go with what works for you. Every individual's metabolism, every individual's psychology, their mindset, it all varies. Everybody is different. We're all unique in our own ways, and what works for me may not always work for you. So you always want to find foods that work for you while keeping the advice that I gave in the back of your mind. So again, research lower calorie options, higher protein options, Google anabolic recipes, and do everything that you can to make these meals sustainably enjoyable for you. All right guys, so that is basically going to wrap up today's video. Again, I had been dieting for about 5 months now. I went through all this. I did it through quarantine, through the pandemic, and this advice applies still whether or not you have access to a gym. If you don't have access to a gym, that sucks, but you know what? You can still train at home, you can still do push-ups, order some equipment online, do what you can. Obviously, it's optimal to have those weight training sessions, but you know, do what you can. Keep the things that I said in the back of your mind and just keep things sustainable, keep things enjoyable, enjoy the process, understand that this is going to be a gradual, slow process. In addition to that, I want to conclude this video by saying that I am unofficially taking up some coaching clients now. And if you are interested in customized online coaching, and obviously this will all be at my personal discretion because I am just kind of starting this out, then go ahead and shoot me a DM on Instagram at CB317Fitness. I can work on just creating at-home workout plans for you. I can work on doing a blend of at-home and gym and maybe just gym workouts. So whatever you guys need, go ahead, contact me, DM me at CB317Fitness. Again, I am an NASM certified personal trainer. I've been training for about 5+ years now. I am a competitive natural bodybuilder and I have been researching this stuff for well over 7 years. I think I've actually been in the fitness lifestyle for maybe since I was 12 years old. Regardless, I do have that experience. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you found this video helpful or informational, go ahead and smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on post notifications, comment down below if you have any comments or questions. And as always, stay gold, kings and queens.